On today's show, we interview Dr. Billy Alsbrooks, who's an expert in the field of motivation. And on today's show, he shares the power of routines, the necessity of routines, and why all super successful people have a daily routine. And on today's show, we take a look inside the mind of the rise and grind super successful people. He shares with us how to write a book, the importance of self-discipline, and the power of speaking hope, joy, and love over yourself and others. If you are looking for just a little extra motivation, this is the show for you.
Your mouth is a creative weapon. It's not a tool for distributing excuses. The first sign of a loser is an excuse. Champions take full responsibility, good or bad, for their outcomes. Tell the world one time what you're gonna do, and that's it. Spend less time talking and more time grinding.
Billy, are you ready to bring the fire?
Let's rock and roll.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1, and...
Get ready to enter the Thrive Time Show.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top, teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's C&Z up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get.
Yes, and yes. Thrive Nation, on today's show, we are interviewing Dr. Billy Alsbrooks, the motivational guru who so many of our clients have told me about. Dr. Billy, welcome onto the Thrive Time Show. How are you, sir?
Thank you for having me, brother. It's an honor to be here. I really appreciate you bringing me on the show, man. We started from the bottom, now we're here.
Yes.
Love it.
You are an anomaly. And for people out there that I want to just figure out who you are or have a sample of who you are, what is the YouTube video, if there was one video that you would direct our listeners to go check out, because you produce amazing content, great motivational stuff, what is one video that you'd recommend our listeners should check out?
I'd say Inside the Mind of a Champion. Inside the Mind of that best sums up me and the inner makeup that I project. I'd say Inside the Mind of a Champion. That's the one that kind of put me on the map as well.
Going inside, okay, so it's Inside the Mind of a Champion. And for people out there, I'll make sure I play some of the audio at the end of the show so they can hear it. Talk to me about your process for producing your content, because it is epic.
Well, I never actually know how I'm going to get to the ending of a piece that I'm working on. But I just know I'm going to get there. God will give me a little piece here, a little piece there. I'll connect with a piece of music, and then the poetry starts flowing. And then by the time I'm done, I'm like, how did I even get here, man? What I do is I just yield my mouth. I yield my mind. I yield my creative abilities to God and just let him work through me. And I notice as long as I yield to that, there's usually no struggle. If I try to do my own thing, that's usually when I get myself in trouble. So I just have to get out of the way and let God use what he put in me to do what he has called me to do. So that's the kind of the process that I go through, man.
What was your background? I mean, tell us your story from starting from the bottom. Now you're here. I mean, where did you? What was life like growing up for you?
Well, I was born in a small town in Alabama. Stayed there till about 8, 9 years old. The recession hit in the early 80s. Work dried up, so my parents we moved to Dallas, Texas. I went out middle school there, first year of high school there. Then my mother got transferred down to South Florida. So I basically would say I grew up really down there in South Florida. That was really the turning point where I started to grow and step into what I'm doing now. My early years were built around 3 things, really. Music. For one, my mother and father were both musicians. My mother has a master's degree, still teaches music lessons today. My father, who's passed away now, but he was in the Alabama Music Hall of Fame as a studio musician in Fame Recording Studios, a real famous studio there in Alabama. So everything that I did, I grew up, just all immersed in music. My grandmother owned a music store, so when every day I'd go down there and she'd babysit me, things like that, and I just heard music the whole day from the moment I got up to the moment I went to sleep. And so music played a big role in my upbringing. The second thing would be martial arts. My father got me in martial arts when I was around 5 years old. So I got to see what discipline was supposed to look like, what being a champion meant, and got around some really, really superb teachers at the time. And they didn't just teach me about martial arts, but taught me about life. And those things stuck with me throughout. So I'd say that is a critical role in my life. And the third thing was alcoholism. I grew up, my father was a good man, but he struggled with addiction to alcohol, as did he and all my uncles and grandparents, things like that. The alcohol just ran on that side of his family. So I saw the struggle of that over and over and over each and every day when I got up. So those three things right there really impacted my journey and brought me to where I am today. Those were the foundational core things that impacted me. I started rapping, though, when I was around 15 years old. When I was in high school, that's when I started pursuing actually getting on the mic and writing songs and doing my own thing, stepping into my own creativity. So it was around 15 years old when I started doing music.
How have you been able to stay sober when that's been something that, your family's fought for years?
I saw enough somewhere along the line. I just said this is not going to happen to me. Because, it was really, really bad, and I just saw my dad, and I said, I don't want this life. I don't want this like this, And most people either go one or two ways. They either, become just like, the parent that's struggling with the addiction, or they completely have nothing to do with it. And me, I had completely nothing to do with it. It just, I never gave into that lifestyle. Never got started, really. I dabbled a little bit in high school, but it was always in the back of my mind, this is runs in our family. We've got to break this cycle. And I used to tell my dad all the time, I'm going to break this cycle. I'm going to break this cycle. I'm going to break this cycle. And, I didn't have anything to do with it. But on the flip side of that, when I was doing music, I was one of the biggest promoters of that lifestyle. I come, as far as music, I was in the thug life and, the drugs, the gangs and all of that. That was my main theme of all my music. So it's kind of ironic that I didn't, touch drugs or do any of that, but I showed, the biggest mouthpiece going out there and promoting it. So, now I'm on the opposite end of that spectrum. See, God had given me a gift. The gift was speaking and articulating, creativity. He gave me the gift. And whenever God gives you a gift, the enemy also knows you have that gift, and he will struggle to steal that gift and to get you to use that gift that God gave you, to use it for his purposes and plans. So for the first stage of my life, I was using my gift, that was supposed to be for good. I was using it for destruction, sowing death and destruction over the people that were listening to my music, man. So now I'm very, very aggressive in what I do, but on the positive side, I'm trying to go back and get these guys off the street, get them off the drugs, get them out of that lifestyle, and sow life into them, man. So, I kind of got to see both sides of it. It was a gift, to be able to see the people in that lifestyle. So now when I'm going out here trying to make the impact, I know where they're coming from, so I can reach them a little bit better. But the devil definitely had me, the first days of my life using my mouth for his plan.
What do you think about Kanye West's new album, Jesus is King, and his overall major change in his life?
Man, I love it. It's all about bringing God glory, and he's definitely doing that. I don't know him personally, man, but he's bringing God glory, bringing attention to the kingdom, man, and that's what it's all about, impacting lives. And I just pray that he continue to, do what God has put in him and continue to impact people all across the globe, man. The world right now is in a dark time, and they need hope, and I know God is going to raise people up like Kanye to get out here and do what needs to be done to bring this thing back into, to order.
Can you explain what you do now? Because if I had to describe you to people, they say, what does Dr. Billy Alsbrooks do? I would say you there's four things: discipline, gospel, scripture, martial arts, and hip-hop music. I'd say discipline, that whole gospel teaching, martial arts, and hip-hop music. But can you explain what you do now and how you actually make money?
I would say the best way to describe it is a motivational artist. I use, the music. I use poetry. I use personal development teaching. I use scripture, passion and fire that I have for what I do. I package that up in a way that impacts people. That's my goal, is to impact positively 1 billion people. So whatever way it is, whether it's doing songs, whether it's doing motivational speaking, whether it's doing live events, whether it's writing books, whatever it is, I use the creativity in a way that's positive, that's uplifting in some type of form.
What kind of microphone do you use?
Man, I actually got like an MXL. It's like a $99 mic, to be honest. But I had that mic for almost 15 years in music. I used it, and it never let me down. So, man, I never changed. It kind of gave me my own sound, so I just didn't stray from it. I mean, I've recorded on all different kind of mics, but the one that I use consistently is just some cheap $99 mic, which you would never imagine. But sometimes it's the little things like that separate you, to give you a little different sound, to give you something different than everyone else is doing. And if my mom used to say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So it works for me, man. I just stuck with it.
And what microphone is that again?
It's an MXL. It's like a $99 mic, man. It's nothing fancy. It's not your Newmans or AKGs or anything like that. It's just a $99 condenser mic, man. But it just never let me down, man.
And what recording software do you use?
I use Pro Tools. I've been using that since my music days back in 2001, 2002. I jumped on that when they started making the transition over from analog to digital, and from then on, I've just been using that. Pro Tools has never let me down.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to queue up a little bit of an audio from of one of your tracks, and I'd like for you to share what this is about. Okay, so this first one is called Unstoppable. This appeared on your YouTube channel, the Dr. Billy Alsbrooks Motivation channel. I'm going to hit play, and just play about 30 seconds of it. You can tell us what the whole 40-minute production is about. Here we go.
This is the inner symphony of greatness, the epic soundtrack of success. I was born a champion. I was raised a champion. I got champion in my bloodline. I've always been a champion. I will always be a champion. And when I close my eyes and die, I will be a champion. On my headstone, they will write champion. Every time they mention my name, they will say champion. My legacy is champion. My obituary will read champion. Every time they mention my name, they will say champion. Because I am a champion.
What inspired you to put that together, and what are you trying to convey there in this particular 40-minute production?
That's a product of the struggle. At that point in my life, I began to awaken to who I am now, the motivational speaking. I've been in music business for 17 years. Then I had this, what I call the 7-year war, the wilderness, where I was fighting panic attacks and lost everything in my life. Then I came out of that, and I was trying to find myself, the new me, like who is me now after all the struggles and all the losses, who is the new me. And I began to step into motivational speaking. My book had just been written, but nothing on the outside of my life was reflecting that which was on the inside. And it was a constant battle to keep going, to keep moving. And the story behind that message there is I actually had a little conversation with my wife. She was kind of conveying to me that I needed to, get with reality. Why don't I get a 9-to-5, and why don't I be just like everyone else, and things like that, and didn't really understand the depth of the dream that I had at that moment. And I kept seeing this thing in my mind, like, no, I'm meant for more than that. I'm meant for more. There's something more in me. I got to connect to what I'm doing every single day. I can't just trade my passion in for a paycheck.
Yep.
But like I said, the things on the outside, nothing in the world was reflecting that dream. And it was very, very frustrating because I knew I had more, and it just wasn't showing up in my life, reflecting. And we had this verbal conversation one day. So I went into my studio just mad. I was at this crossroad to the left, the 9-to-5, average existence, living under limitations, doing something that I didn't enjoy, maybe having one day off a week. Or on the right was the unlimited, the things God has promised, the dreams, the freedom, the liberation, the financial prosperity, all that stuff was on the right. And it was like, which one am I going to choose? And I was so close to giving up because things just weren't happening, and just things weren't reflecting, the inside. And I began to buy into maybe I am just crazy. So when I went into the studio the other day, I put on some music, and I said, I've got to remind myself right now of who I am, my true identity. So I began just to speak these things, man, and then they just started coming off my tongue, out of my mouth, and I just started to connect to it and just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And I called it the inner symphony because it's what's going on in my head. You'll hear the battle between the enemy saying, you really believe all that stuff you're saying? And then I'll talk back to it. It's like that was what was going on in my mind at the time. And it really resonated with me. I really connected to that piece, and I never expected it to do what it did. I was just really doing it for my own encouragement, my own inspiration. I needed to anchor myself to something because I was about to lose the dream. And the craziest thing about it was, at the time I put that out, I didn't have any followers. I might have had 200 followers on YouTube at the time, and most of that was my family. Nobody was listening to me. But I put that video out, and the craziest thing happened. Some motivational channels got a hold of it, some big stations. They had, massive followers. They put it out. Next thing you know, that thing went viral, got millions of plays. And my book started selling. And it's been sold in 27 countries now, man. My whole career began to take off from that video. So there's a scripture that says, death and life in the power of the tongue. Those that love it shall eat the fruits thereof. And it is so true because I began to speak my identity. I began to speak success with that track. And everything on the outside of the world began to bow down to what I was conveying and projecting. And everything in my life pivoted and changed after doing that video.
You are you familiar with Charles Kolaw? Have you ever heard the name Charles Kolaw?
Not right off top.
If you get a chance today, this is something that you could share with your incredible wife, or share with yourself, or maybe just a little bonus for you, a little bonus gift here for you. One of my clients, Charles Kolaw, is a very, 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 I'm using the word very a lot, physically fit person. And he also owns a massive chain of big box gyms. It's called KolawFitness.com. It's a Christian-owned gym, kind of like a Chick-fil-A meets a Planet Fitness. And he loves your stuff, and he is jacked. And he listens to you every morning. Like every morning he works out to your stuff. So he had a couple questions for you. He said in chapter 1 of your book, Blessed and Unstoppable, the chapter of the book is called Detox Emotionally. Can you explain what that means to detox yourself emotionally for all the listeners out there?
Most people are probably familiar with the detoxing of the body, the things that we eat and stuff that we need to clean our body out and put it back in its original state of balance. But a lot of times we forget that the real poison in us is the bitterness, the jealousy, the anger, the resentment, the pains, the things that we are stuffing down on the inside of our emotional state. And we live through our emotional state. So everything that we do comes through that filter. So if you want to go to the highest levels of success, you've got to start on the inside first, and you got to lay the foundation for it. And the best way to do that is to let go of the past. You cannot go into the promised land that God has given us, carrying every wrong and every transgression done to us. We cannot carry that into the promised land. The door is too narrow. We have to let it go. There's an old saying, the lighter the weight, the higher the lift. So if you get the inside right, that's half the battle right there. That's half the battle. So step 1 in my book is the detox emotionally. It's letting go of the bitterness, letting go of the angers and the resentments and the wrongs and the things that we suppress all day long, and letting go of that and choosing a greater freedom, choosing to be blessed and unstoppable. And the only way to really go to those next levels of success is to let this stuff go. Because many times we'll get success, but if we haven't dealt with the inside, success will actually turn on us and destroy us. So it's one of the critical steps, that I put in the book. And I put it number 1 because it's that important. We have to get the inside right first.
You also have said that success is the accumulation of the right thoughts humbly and consistently walked out. How many years were you recording YouTube videos and putting up content before you could finally make it a sustainable, monetized thing? Where your passion actually produced a profit for you?
Well, there's two phases. There's when I was doing music and doing YouTube when it was very in its early stages, and then there was when I got into motivation. As far as doing what I'm doing now, motivation-wise, it was about a year in. Okay. But my income did not necessarily, the major source of my income did not come from the YouTube. It came from what the YouTube vehicle allowed me to do, the platform allowed me to do, was to get my book out there, to get me bookings so that I could go out and convey my message. And it also promoted my other platforms, you know, Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, the motivational albums, the social media that, you know, built the network and built the following that I could get up every single day and try to make an impact. So I didn't just look at it from streaming. I tried to see it from different angles. You know, just, you know, streaming is one income, but what other income could I bring into the equation that would offset why I'm growing, why I'm, you know, coming up the ladder. So my clothing line, that was a big play in that too, because I started out with the books, then I introduced the clothing line. The clothing line is really doing well now. And now the streaming revenue is actually beginning to catch up to the other sources too. But I didn't just focus just on like, well, I've got to get this streaming, because you know, you got to get a lot of views and a lot of followers in you know, order to live off of that. You know, at least that's the kind of lifestyle that I wanted to live. So I knew I had to do some other things, and I just brought entrepreneurism into it and said, how can I add some value? And if you want money, whatever it is, you start with value. Most people start with money. You got to start with value, because money chases value. You say, how can I take the things that I love, the passions that I'm enamored with, how can I package this in some kind of way that adds value to people? And if you do that, the money will follow. When I got into motivational speaking, it wasn't for the money. I didn't even think of it as a career. I just love personal development. I just love the champion mindset, entrepreneurism, these things. I just loved it. And then it collided with music, which I was already connected to, and the poetry. I just got in it for the love and woke up one day. I was like, whoa, this thing could be something, you know, massive. I began every day to wake up to myself. And once I started waking up, then I started to say, okay, this is something I want to do every single day of my life. So now I need to figure out ways to add value that'll bring those income streams in. So some people out there that listen right now, you know, you might be concerned with the money aspect, but start with the value. If you add value, money will come stalking. Money will find you. Don't put the money first. Put the fire, the passion, the things that you love, and then wrap those passions into a way that adds value, and that money will come.
Dr. Billy, for people out there who want to know your educational background, what was kind of your education? Are you self-taught? Did you go to formal education? Have you done a little bit of both? Because you are definitely a source of wisdom.
I did a little bit of both. You know, high school, I probably underachieved because I was focused on my rap career. So the only thing I really did in class was just write poetry, write rhymes. You know, I could have done so much more in high school. I just didn't commit and dedicate myself to it. When I got out of high school, I went to the Art Institute studying music and video business. So I went and got the degree in that. And, you know, it kind of helped me there in the music industry. When my life began to change, you know, as far as the knowledge part, was 2001. Up until this point, I really didn't do any kind of self-taught or any kind of, you know, reading on my own. It was, you know, I had to be forced to read something. Yeah. But around 2001, I got a hold of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he talked about self-education and learning the things that the schools don't teach us and why we struggle, and you know, every problem is just a wisdom problem. So I bought into that book and that whole philosophy, and I began to immerse myself into reading every single day from like 2001 on. I would go to the bookstore 2 or 3 hours a day and just read. I'd bring my notebook in there, start taking notes. Every day I'd go in there, I'd grab 3 or 4 different types of books. Like I'd go in there one day and grab spiritual, something on business and entrepreneurism, something on history, something on the biography of, you know, a great man or woman or whatever. And I'd just sit down and put my alarm on the phone, 20 minutes, 30 minutes each, and I'd read a little bit from each book, and I'd just take notes. And I did this for years before I even got into what I'm doing now. And now looking back, I realized it was really just all preparation for what I was doing. Because I used to tell my mom, like, I'm reading all this stuff and I feel like there's something in me, but I just don't know what I'm doing it for or why I'm doing it. But I just know that it's connected to something. I just hadn't discovered it. And now it all makes sense looking back. But at the time, man, I just really, really loved, you know, wisdom and knowledge, and never saw a career in doing this, anything like this. You know, back in those days, I just went into the bookstore to learn. How did you support yourself financially while you were building up your platform? Were you eating ramen noodles? What were you doing? Well, in the music business, I had multiple businesses. I had CD stores, you know, radio revenue, producing revenue, and things like that. When my father died in front of me, it triggered PTSD and panic attacks in me, and I went through a war for 7 years. What happened? A mental war. What happened? Well, he had a stroke, got a blood clot, and I saw the last 10 minutes of his life, man. It was unexpected and just really rocked me at the core. 1 minute he's fine, and 10 minutes later he's gone, and it just really rocked me at the core because, you know, I just wasn't expecting it, and the trauma from it just took over my mind. You know, I went from being on stage in front of 20,000 people rapping to being in my bedroom for 2 weeks at a time, not wanting to come out because I was scared I was going to have another panic attack. So for the next 7 years, that was my life. It literally consumed the panic attack, consumed everything. I had these businesses running, but, you know, I was kind of the main piece of the businesses. So they all suffered because I wasn't really able to be there full time and really to oversee them.
Got it.
But having read Robert Kiyosaki, it saved me because I did have these income streams that weren't necessarily tied to me being there 24/7. They did suffer because I wasn't there like I could have been, but they did support me during that time that I was sick. You know, I'd put a lot of money up before I got sick. So the 7 years is kind of like a death by 1,000 cuts. Every day I got up and just got squeezed a little bit more. My finances went down a little bit more. My music career was fading out because I couldn't do that because I'm sick. And I woke up one day and I had lost everything. Everything I had built, I'm like, it's gone. You know, I still had the businesses, but I really wasn't connected to them anymore. So as far as this right here, I started the transformation over from that world into this world. And the first transformation was I had CD stores everywhere. I turned those CD stores into cell phone accessory stores, which I call Bless Mobile. That was when I began to make the change, coming out of the destruction into trying to do something positive. And those businesses kept me going as I was writing my book. I wrote the book before I started doing motivation speaking. So I wrote the book, and then around 2017, when the book was finally done, I sold all the other businesses, and I just said, I don't know what you want from me, God, but I'm just going to step out here in faith and just pursue this thing that you put on the inside of me. And I still hadn't awoken to motivational speaking being the calling. I just had a book, and that was it. I left everything I knew, sold the businesses, and in 2017, I said, okay, here I am, God, show me what to do. And I think it was March or April of 2017 is when I put that Inside the Mind of a Champion out, and then things began to move in that direction. I woke up to who I was. And I always had the entrepreneurial mindset that the Kiyosaki had installed in me in his reading, man. So I applied it to everything, and I just brought it into doing the motivation. I was like, okay, this is very similar to what I did in music. The YouTube channel is just like when I was rapping, I had my own radio show. So, okay, it's the same. And then what did I do back in the day when I rapped? Okay, on my radio show, I pushed my clothing line. I pushed my music. Okay, let me just do that over here on YouTube. So I just took the same kind of formula that I had in music and just brought it over to the positive and just built the brand that way. So I guess I had a jump start because I had the knowledge of going through this prior with the music business. So it might have been a little bit easier on the second go around because I made a whole lot of mistakes in music. And my goal basically in this was to not make the same mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes, just don't make it twice. So when I got into this, I just kind of used the things that I knew worked over there and just tried to figure out how they applied to this.
Dr. Billy, I have the man, the myth, the Charles Kolaw inside the studio here. Charles Kolaw, I told Dr. Billy that you and your wife have built a chain of gyms that you guys own. You have 3 big box gyms. It's kind of like the Planet Fitness meets Chick-fil-A. You've got one in Topeka, one in Joplin. You've got one in Bartlesville. You've got one coming out here soon in Oklahoma City and Arlington. I told him that you listen to his stuff often while pumping iron. The floor is yours to ask Dr. Billy. Dr. Billy, meet Charles Kolaw.
Super, Billy. Hey, thank you so much. You've been such an inspiration to me and my wife, Amber. Amber, go ahead and say hi.
So many times, Billy. We can't thank you enough for what you do.
You have got an awesome...
I appreciate it.
Yes, our slogan is at our gym is to make Jesus famous and change lives. And you are definitely doing that on all your YouTube videos. And I have been super inspired by your heart to help others, encourage others, and love on others. Super awesome. It definitely makes a difference for me and a lot of other people, I'm sure, are. That's
why Charles is jacked. Yeah. We worked out once every
like a buck
month
20,
before.
And now I'm like 250.
How much do you weigh and how big are you? Just so he knows, he's going to Google you.
I'm about 255 to 260 right now, about 6'4".
It's all my cooking.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm probably
you're cooking, huh?
Okay, so Charles, what questions would you have here for Dr. Billy? We're going to go rapid fire.
Well,
Okay.
Basically, I just first off I want to say thank you. You're awesome at all that stuff, and then just writing a book. I have been trying to start writing a book. We're about to get a little book finished, and so what got you into writing that book, and how did you do that with writing that book? That blessing.
Well, I've been writing songs, my whole life, doing poetry and in the music aspect of it. And when I got out of music, I missed the creativity. I missed being able to express myself. And God started putting the vision in me around 2009 or 10 for the book. And I flirted with it several times. I'd start, write a couple pages and then stop, and write a couple pages and stop. And around the end of 15, the drums really started beating louder inside. Like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I started writing around 2015. And I wrote very passionate in the very beginning. I wrote like 100 pages, just like sucked myself into it. And then one day I got up for some reason and I looked at the scoreboard and I said, this book is going to be around 300 pages. And you've been doing this every single day, all day, every day. And you're only 100 pages. You're never going to get to the end of this thing. And by looking at the scoreboard, I took my eyes off the process, the focus, and started, putting it on other places, and got discouraged. And I actually quit. I said, there's no way I'm going to finish this book. And I actually stopped. And it was about 2 to 3 months went by, and I completely had, given up the dream on it. And a friend of mine had sent me an email, not regarding the book I was writing, but there was a message in it that God wanted me to see. And it was an interview with Stephen King and the guy who wrote Game of Thrones. They were on a book tour. And the guy from Game of Thrones asked Stephen King, he's like, how do you put out so many books? Like, every 3 to 4 months you're putting out a book. He's like, it takes me 9 months to write a chapter. How do you do it? And the thing that stuck with me, Stephen King said, every day I get up and I write 3 to 5 pages. That's all I do. I don't focus on the book. I don't do any of that. I just focus on getting up and writing for 3 to 5 pages, not critiquing my work, not judging it, anything like that. I just get up and write. And in 30 days, I've got between 90 pages and 150 pages, and 3 months time I got a full book. Then we go back and chop and edit and things like that. I just get up and write every single day, and I know if I do that every single day, the books will take care of itself. So that really stuck with me, and I'm like, okay, that's where I went wrong. I looked at the 300 and 400 pages instead of just looking at the process. So I got up and started writing in that shape and fashion, and within 2 to 3 months I had the book done. And I actually put that quote on the very front of my book to remind myself of that, because it applies to everything. It's that success is a marathon of consistency, walked out one day at a time. So that's what I do. I just get up every single day and focus on the process, knowing if I take care of the process, the points will eventually show up on the scoreboard.
That's great.
Dr. Billy, I want to ask you, how do you organize the first 4 hours of every day, and what time do you wake up? Like, what time do you wake up, and what do the first 4 hours look like?
It depends. I'm on a creative schedule sometimes, and then I'm on an actual speaking schedule other times. If I'm out on the tour on the road, I get up on a more earlier schedule, 8 or 9 in the morning when I have to do the speaking events. Yeah. When I'm on the creative schedule, which is my old music schedule, when I go in the studio to write, I like to do that at night when there's less distraction, nobody up, and I'll stay up sometimes 5 or 6 in the morning and just grinding in the studio to myself. The phone doesn't ring, no one's disturbing, and I'm just lost in the creative aspect of it. But my daily routine on a normal day, I always anchor these things regardless. The first thing I do is I pour motivation into me. I get up every single day. I've got a few messages that I play that are just powerful affirmations, Christian-based, and I just get up there and just connect with that over and over. When I'm taking a shower, I blare this stuff. The next thing I do is I read Proverbs. Before I leave the house, I read 1 chapter of Proverbs every single day. I sit down with Solomon, the greatest man who ever lived, the wisest man who ever lived, and sit underneath him and listen to his knowledge. And each chapter, I read 1 chapter a day. There's 31 chapters. So in each month goes by, I read the whole thing of Proverbs.
I love it.
That's really helped me in my life. The third thing is I read every single day. So when I usually go to lunch, I go to a restaurant. Most of the time I go out because I like to be around people. And I associate that time as my reading time. I anchor that. Okay, while I'm eating, I'm going to dedicate this 30, 45 minutes to gaining knowledge. So I read every single day. And then after working, after doing the reading, then I go work out. I put my workout in. And then after that, I start whatever needs to be done. But I anchor my day around those things every single day. Those are things that do not change. At the end of the day, what I do is I go out what I call for a prayer walk. I do this every night, 30 30 minutes to an hour. I walk around my neighborhood by myself, in the peace, in the quiet, walk down to the river, and I just get connected to my maker. And the victory is established in our alone time with God. And now I make sure every single day I don't, lose where I came from, and don't forget who put me here and why I'm here. So I go out and connect with my maker every single day. I anchor everything else around those. Like that, those are non-negotiable things. Those things there, either if I'm on the road or not, I still make sure that I have those things in my daily routine.
Dr. Billy, I know Amber Kolaw has a question for you, but before she asks her question, I want to ask you, there's so many entrepreneurs out there, and I get very passionate about this because I want to hug our listeners and then secretly pull out a taser gun and just and just not stop until they get it. People cannot seem to grasp the idea, and I know our listeners can, but other people. Every billionaire I've interviewed, every multimillionaire I've interviewed has a routine. And it's different for every person, yes. But they do not check their smartphone or respond to endless, mindless distractions until they get their stuff done. And we live in a world of perpetual distraction. Now, action gets you closer to your goal. Distraction takes you further away from your goal. What would you say to somebody if you really cared about them, they're a good buddy of yours, and they say, I know a routine works for you, sir. I know a routine works for Wolfgang Puck, who we've had on our show. I know routines work for John Maxwell, who we've had on our show. I know routines work for Pastor Craig Rochelle, who we've had on our show. I know routines work well for everyone that you guys have ever had on the show, but for me, I like to get up and just kind of see what happens. What would you say to somebody out there who's fighting against routine?
Well, victory success is pretty much always rooted, as you mentioned, all the greats that I've studied, they always had some kind of routine. You just can't get away from it. I mean, anywhere you look, if you look in sports, you look in business, you look in ministry, you look in health, fitness, whatever, it's a routine, that what we do every single day, eventually we become. So, you have to decide what kind of life do you want to live. There's average on the left, mediocre existence on the left, and greatness on the right. You get up every day and choose which one of those you want to live. And the routines, the discipline, the daily anchors, those are the things that produce greatness. There's certain things you just cannot get away from. And once you make that choice, it's a lot easier to have those routines. But some people just hadn't made that choice yet. They made a choice, or at least made a choice to the wrong side. There's so much potential in them, but they just haven't decided that they want to pursue that yet. And the daily routine is definitely critical. I learned this back in when I was little doing martial arts. I won the Junior Olympics. I was national champion. I went to the Junior Olympics and trained with those guys, and then I got the benefit of training under the Olympians that were going to be in the 1988 Olympics. Martial arts was into the Olympics in 1988 when it was held in Korea. So I got to see what the Olympic athletes and what their daily routine looked like, and I came home and mimicked it. And before I went to school, I'd get up 2 hours before school. My daddy would have me stretching, doing kicks and forms early in the morning. I used to hate it. But when I'd go to these tournaments, I'd wipe the floor with these people because they didn't have that kind of routine and that kind of structure to be a champion. And I did. I resented it and kind of rejected it in the beginning because I just didn't understand what was at play. But after seeing the fruits of it, I understood, my daddy was doing the right thing by it. He showed me what greatness looked like. And I did the same thing in music. I would spend, hours and hours doing things that no one else would want to do. In the music business, most people wanted to do the studio part, the fun part. But the thing that usually made you or broke you in the music industry was your grind, your hustle, your promotion. Like everybody wanted to be in the studio or be on stage and live that life. But when it came down to going out handing flyers, when you're in the beginning stages, going out there and doing the hustle and the grind and the sweat, that's usually what separated, the winners from the losers. And I brought over the martial arts structure and discipline and routines. I brought that into music and just applied the same principles and was successful with it. It's the same here with this. I apply those same principles over here. It'll work in anything you're doing. These are universal principles that are tied to success, and there's no success without them.
Dr. Billy, we have time here for 3 final questions. Amber Kolaw has a question. Corey Minter, the founder of Trinity Employment, has a question. And then our legal eagle, Wes Carter, he's an attorney, so he's going to paint you into a corner, I'm sure. He has a question for you. So, Amber Kolaw, what would be another question that you would have for Dr. Billy?
Well, I don't know. If I could talk my husband into it, we might have to build out a stage within all of our gyms to just have you stand there and just preach it loud to all the members live because it's so motivating every morning when we listen to you. And it's so funny. We always go back to the Blessed and Unstoppable 1, back to the very beginning of, all of the videos. And it's gotten to where we've listened to it so many times that we could just almost repeat it word for word. And we have a gym at home, and so it's just us, and it's blaring. And
let me play just a little clip of this real quick.
Yeah.
Here. Let me just play a little bit.
I got a question for you. Are you living life, or is life living you? How bad do you want to be successful? Are you ready to level up in life? Are you ready to go to that next level? Are you sick of being average? I ask you again, are you living life, or is life living you? Less than unstoppable.
You listen to this every day?
It's so exciting,
Shonda.
and we get so pumped. So here's an exciting question for you. I've got an idea for you. You know the books, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and then he came out with all the others. You got Chicken Soup for the Mother Soul. So I think we need a Blessed and Unstoppable because we need him for a Blessed and Unstoppable for the mother. We need the Blessed and Unstoppable for a wife.
A series.
Because I will hear you on some of your videos, and you'll really hit on. You can just feel the passion within you, like when you talk about your wife and you're talking about speaking truth over her. And it's so powerful that, even at that moment, my husband will come over and just, put his hand on me or high five me and just repeating what you're saying, speaking truth over me. I know we've had mornings that even in a workout, we're spiritually battling for one of our children, and you'll just chime right in and you're speaking truth. And one of the most powerful things is the power in your voice. And you've got a quote that I've got written down here. The most powerful things in existence is faith, mind, and the spoken word of God. And we love how you speak God's word with a power and a truth that is exciting. And it gets us excited about God's word. It gets us ready to go fight the enemy through the day. So what is your next project that you have coming? Because I know God's going to use you in great ways.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words you said there. I'm working on volume 2 of Blessed and Unstoppable, and I think you're just kind of confirming what God had put in me to about doing the series. I've been flirting in my mind with that for a while now, so it's good to see that I'm on the right page, and I think maybe God just used you to confirm that.
Well, we've got
that
volume
message.
1.
You got volume 1.
We do. We've got it.
Are you gonna, Dr. Billy? The co-laws, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but you guys have thousands and thousands of members. Mm-hmm. You got to have Dr. Billy night or something.
Oh,
this has to happen. You guys need to connect. This has to happen, Dr. Billy.
Get you to a grand opening or something, or get the people. We tell everybody we know.
This has to happen.
We forward your YouTube videos. They're absolutely encouraging. And it was from watching your video that I jumped online and ordered the book.
Uh-oh.
And I love that you personally signed the book. So, and I know that as you grow and you get bigger, that may not be a possibility.
They're going to book you, Dr. Billy, offline. They're going to book you. Is that cool? Are you cool with that? Are you down with that?
I'm down with that, man. I love the idea, the gym, the Chick-fil-A in the gym. That's perfect. That's an awesome combination right there with the spiritual and the body together, man. It doesn't get better than that.
Well,
I'm working on volume 2 right now, Blessed and Unstoppable, and actually another one called Burning, the Inner Symphony of Fire, which is I'm going to do poetry with that and tie it into self-help, because some of the poetry will be about the struggle and the things I'm going through, and then I'll point it back to God's word and how to fight the struggle.
Well,
so I'm authentic in the word,
heart.
because as a Christian, sometimes they think that everything, once we accept Christ, that everything just falls in place and everything is just, happy. And that's not the case. It's warfare
it's
once
opposite.
you get saved. That's when the war actually starts.
Absolutely. It's the opposite of that. Well, thank you for sharing your heart and the trials that you've gone through, because your trials have encouraged us. And we know that it was through those trials that you wrote the things that you wrote, and that you speak through the YouTube videos that you do as
Dr.
well.
Billy, I don't know how far and wide your trademark is and your copyrights for your books and your material list, but I'm working on a book that I gave to Corey the other day. I haven't given it to him. I've thought about giving it to you, Corey. I've been working on this. Corey is a red hair guy. He started Trinity Employment, and it's called
Ginger Power.
No, it's called Blessed and Unstoppable for gingers who have founded a staffing company.
Right.
Are you excited about this book, Corey?
I'm pumped about this. I
Okay,
can't wait
Corey,
to
what
see
question
this.
do you have for this Christian motivational expert, hip-hop guru? What questions would you have?
Oh, well, I am very interested in something that you said earlier. You quoted something that was one of the most important lessons that I began to learn and am still learning. It's just a journey. But the verse that you quoted is that there is life and death in the power of the tongue. And my mentor really harped on me about this. And a great example of how it was is I would say, well, I really wish I could do this, but I just don't know that I'm able to do it. He'd be like, well, if you say so. Whatever you say.
Proverbs 18:21, by the way.
And listen, it was the most powerful lesson that I began to learn. I think it's a journey in really, truly understanding that. But I was hoping that maybe you could speak a little bit about your journey in really understanding that verse. Most people read it and like, oh, yeah, that's great. But when you really get the power of that, it changes your perspective, and your perspective changes your circumstances. Tell me about your journey a little bit about that.
Well, for years I was doing the rap, and I was sowing the death and destruction out of my mouth into the community. And then all of a sudden I got blindsided. My father passed away, and now I'm facing this inner war going on in my mind. And it seemed like the moment my father passed away, that the enemy, the devil, grabbed the mic and started speaking to me.
Yep.
Like I'd had the mic all my life, and all of a sudden now I can't say anything, and he's speaking to me. He's telling me that the good days are over, that I'm going to die just like my father did, helpless there, that I'm going to stroke, and that this is the new way of living. It's, the good is gone. It's just going to be dark and black. And for like 7 years, he had the mic, and he just spoke in my mind. He was speaking to me. And finally, I took the mic back and began to speak back to him, and that's when my life started to change. I started coming out of the dark when I started speaking back. And I started conveying what God had, said in his word. And I said, if John 3:16 is truth, then that means this other stuff must be truth. And if I say what it says right here in Proverbs 18:21, it says that I can change my life. So I'm going to align with this. I'm going to test this out. So I began to, speak every single day when the enemy would say, you're going to die, you're going to die. I'd start quoting back, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you a hope in the future. So I started conveying that. And next thing you know, I started actually believing that. Once I said it enough, I started believing it. And then my mind started changing. I started seeing the world different. And I slowly began to climb out of that pit I was in, And then I realized, well, wow, if, this works for me, what other kind of power does it have? And then I realized, well, I could sow life over other people. So I started speaking and sowing life that way. And then I got to thinking about the science of it. Okay, well, if death and life and the power of the tongue, it's the audio that is part of God's change here. If I'm on YouTube, I'm blasting that audio around the globe. So I can change the world with my mouth through YouTube, because it's going to be broadcasted all throughout the globe. So I really started to come into the understanding of the power and the tools that God had put in place. So, it just added another sense of aggressive in my message. I'm like, when you say these things, it's not just you saying these things. These things have the potential to change people, change circumstances, and change lives. So when I get behind that mic, I don't, consider it a game. It's not playtime for me. There's people on the other line, on the other side of YouTube, on the other side of these speakers that are going through real life struggles, stage 4 cancer, in prison, marriage breaking up, bankruptcy, children sick, whatever it is. They're going through real trials and tribulations. And me, with my mouth, that might be the only shot they got. So when I get behind that mic, I take it real serious, and I try to sow as much life and give the things that God has put in me to, and give them to them full speed, man.
Dr. Billy, you are just a wealth of knowledge, and I respect your time. We have one more question, and again, I just, Wes, you're an attorney, so I don't want to overstep here, but that book I'm working on for you, it's called Blessed and Unstoppable, Plan B, if you don't like Dr. Billy's Plan A. It's a book for lawyers.
Oh, I see.
It's 18 and exciting Conversations for Litigation. It's a really phenomenal book
That's
series.
what lawyers are known for, is exciting conversations.
All right, so what question would you have Wes Carter? By the way, Wes Carter, he's a partner with the law firm wintersking.com, that represents T.D. Jakes, who I'm sure you're aware of. They represented Pastor Joel Osteen back in the day, Joyce Meyer, Pastor Craig Rochelle. So a lot of commonalities, probably a lot of shared connections here. Wes Carter, what questions would you have for good Dr. Billy?
Well, I'm curious, looking at how your tracks progress. I know you came out of the hip-hop world, and once you started getting into the speaking gigs, I'm curious, was there anyone that you modeled your oration after? You start talking about knowledge is one thing, passion's another, but communicating it, your rhythm, your tone, your inflection. Were there any people you looked at and said, hey, I'm going to take a little bit of this, I'm going to take a little bit of that? Anybody you modeled how your speaking ability after?
Well, when I was going through the panic attack for 7 years, I would listen to motivational speakers all day long because I was going through the struggle. So I'd listen to the Tony Robbins, Eric Thomas, T.D. Jakes, Joe. I actually got to see Joe in 2009 when I was right in the middle of this struggle. My mother lives in Houston, and she took me out there, and she's like, son, listen to this guy. This guy was so hopeful over you. And I was just at that early stage of getting back to God, and Joe's message and the way he conveyed it was just perfect for the time I was in. I was like, man, I really needed this. And it kind of set me on a, total different trajectory. But I studied all the greats. I go back and listen to Churchill, Martin Luther King, Kennedy, all the people that have been great speakers throughout time, and really study their format, study their structure, their breakdown, their articulation, their dynamics when they go soft, when they go high, studying the body language and things like that. That I really immersed myself in the great. But it got to a point that I think it was 2018 that I cut everybody else off. I was like, okay, you study the greats now. Now you must come into your own. Because I knew this, from music. If you listen to certain artists too long, you start to sound like them, and then you end up being a cover band of that group that you love. You don't really come into your own thing. So I turned it off just like I did in music. You get the foundation. The great builds your foundation. And then you have to sooner or later, you have to get to your own truth, your own authenticity. And so around 2018, I cut off all motivation and just went inside and said, okay, Lord, let me dance in my own music now. Show me what it is and how to convey it and what you want. I'm sure there's traces and evidence of all these greats that I studied in my stuff. But I'm hoping to, each day get up and pursue my own truth and be who God has made me to be. We stand on the shoulders of the greats and the legends, but we still have to have our own authenticity and our own truth. And that's what I'm striving for every day.
Final 30 seconds here for you. For the listeners out there that want to know what to do as a result of this, is there a specific YouTube channel you would recommend they go to, a specific website, or a book you want them to purchase? I mean, what is the next step if they want to learn more and get into the world of all things Dr. Billy Alsbrooks?
Okay, I'll give them quick three things. YouTube.com / Billy, Billy, Alsbrooks, Alsbrooks. That's my YouTube channel right there. I've got 180 plus videos on there. You can listen to them any time of day. They're all free, no charge, nothing. So if you want to hear some motivation and you need some extra boost, or you're going through the struggle, the trials, tribulations, go to the channel. I guarantee you it'll help you. Second thing, the book, Blessed and Unstoppable, Your Blueprint for Success. You can get that directly from me at blessedandunstoppable.com. And then the third thing is I'm on a 40-city tour right now. I'm going to the major cities in the United States. If you get the opportunity, come to one of the seminars. I promise you I'll give you some value. I'll give you some tools and some ammo to change your life. So if you get the opportunity, be sure to show up to one of the seminars. We're also going to October 25th. We'll also be in London. I'm bringing Blessed and Unstoppable to the continent of Europe. So we can't wait for that. That's just been announced last week. So we'll be there October 25th in London. But be sure to check us out online. Subscribe to the YouTube, get the book, and hope to see you at one of the seminars.
Dr. Billy, you are a laser show. Thank you so much for lending us your time and for producing the content that Charles and Amber and so many people listen to on a daily basis. We really do appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's an honor. I just want to say thank you for having me on this show. And like I end every single video, Billy Alsbrooks, blessed and unstoppable, and to God be the glory.
And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1.